Hello viewers, welcome to Food Braggers Network. Today I'm going to make us something delicious again, and this time I'm making breadfruit puffs. Here I'll be using breadfruit. This came really in a big size, so I had to buy the sliced portion of it because I know I wouldn't be able to go through it. So this is the unripe breadfruit. When it is ripe, it is actually very soft and very sappy, or filled with milk or something similar to that. So, but this one is a green one that is not yet ripe. I'm going to also use curry powder, yellow onions, fresh garlic, salt, black pepper, fresh basil leaf, spicy pepper, optional, whole eggs, butter, and if you do not have butter, you could also use margarine. Here I have corn flour, all-purpose. You can also use all-purpose flour. If you do not want to use corn flour, you can use all-purpose rising flour, or you could omit this entirely, and I'll show us how. I will use peanut oil and chopped onions. So now that I've shown us all these ingredients, if you are new to my channel, Food Braggers Network, I hope you do go back and watch all the videos that I have already uploaded for you on some of my favorite recipes. And also subscribe to the channel so that you'll be one of the first to be notified once I have uploaded new videos. I say this all the time on my channel. If you make the dish, you test it, and it's delicious, you earn the right to brag about it. So try out our recipes, and if they taste good to you, join our Food Braggers Family Network, and let's talk about the dishes. So now for breadfruit, rather not grapefruit, breadfruit. Breadfruit, as it is, has this juice or sap which sticks to everything that you put it on. So to avoid that sticking all over your knife, your hands, and where you lay this on, what you do is, I'm going to use parchment paper to cover up my chopping board. That way I know if I create a mess, I'm just going to throw out my parchment paper. So by doing that, I will make sure that my chopping board is protected whilst I am preparing my breadfruit. And I'll also grease my knife with oil. That way it does not stick to the knife. If you're putting it in a plate, also grease the plate so that way it does not stick. You can either use, like I said, parchment paper, or you could grease your chopping board so that when you are cutting into this, it will not stain. You can wear gloves so that your hand also, it does not stick to your hand. It is very difficult to get it out once it sticks. Or you could also grease your palm whilst you are preparing this. That way you avoid the mess. So here we can see my breadfruit. When it came from the stores, it was wrapped in so many plastic layers. That way you won't have to stain anything in the store, or even when you buy it. So now what I'm going to do, I have here a little bit of oil. Any vegetable oil of your choice is okay. I'm just going to grease the knife that I'm going to use to cut it, because I know it's going to stain everywhere. I'll still grease my parchment paper a little bit, so I have that there. Grease my gloves so it wouldn't be that sticky whilst I'm cutting it. So now I'm going to proceed to cutting it. You can see it was wrapped in several layers of plastics. I had to unwrap those. So now I'm going to slice that. And you have to be careful of your clothing too, that it doesn't stain. So I'm just going to use half of this size to make what I'm going to make. Have to get out all the seeds from the breadfruit. The seeds are not going to be part of this meal. So what we do, if you notice here, that's this middle portion here, I'm going to cut it out. That is not going to be used either. That middle portion is actually very hard to chew, so you will not need it. And I'm also going to take out the outer portion here. That too is not going to be used. But try as much as possible not to waste the flesh, because that's what you need. So I'll cut it into sizes that will allow me to be able to take out those seeds. And I will nicely take out all the seeds from the soursop, and then wash the other part very nicely and get it ready for what we're going to do, and then I'll show us as we go on. Okay guys, so what I have here is a pot of water on the stove, just enough to cover up the breadfruit. I'm going to boil that breadfruit. So I'm going to season this hot water with salt. Salt is to taste, and I also put in just a little bit of black pepper to season up that water. I had nicely cut my breadfruit into tiny pieces. I took out the seed, not because the seed cannot be eaten, but I will not use the seed for this recipe. I'm going to save those seeds, and I'll use them later on for a different recipe, which I will share with you when it is time. So now I'm going to nicely just throw in those breadfruit into that boiling water, and I'm going to allow it cook until it is tender. It may take 15 to 20 minutes or even less, because I cut them into tiny bits, but I will be checking. Once it is tender, I will show us what else we're going to do. So put in the breadfruit there, cover up the pot, and allow it to cook until it is tender. Okay viewers, this has been boiling for 20 minutes now at high heat. I can see that it is very tender because I touched it. So it is really tender now, soft. What I'm going to do now is to turn off the heat and then drain out the liquid. So I'm going to turn that off, and I will drain out that liquid into it. So right there, I'll nicely drain out. So guys, once I had finished boiling it, using a sieve, I drained out the liquid. I didn't throw away that liquid. I'm going to keep that liquid because it is flavor packed. I'm going to use it to make dishes. But here I'm going to wait until this cools to room temperature. Then I'm going to proceed with the next phase of this recipe. Okay guys, so now we are at the second phase of our preparation. My breadfruit boiled. So now and it's cooled down to room temperature. So now I'm going to blend that. This breadfruit is so yummy that I almost ate half of it before it got to this blender, because you can eat it boiled just as it is, or you could process it into so many different things, one of which is what I'm going to do right now, so I can show you how I make my breadfruit paws. Toss that into the blender. I also have my measured dried ingredient here. I have chopped dried onions, which I have here. I have black pepper and salt. I'm going to toss that in there. I'm also going to toss in there some chili pepper. That's optional if you want. One glove of garlic and some of my yellow onions, which I have also sliced. And I'm going to blend this together. So my breadfruit is nicely blended. I'm now going to toss in the fresh basil. I did chop the basil into pieces or into tiny bits. So I'm going to toss those basil into it and blend it again so that it will mix up with the other ingredients. So having nicely blended my ingredients and my cooked breadfruit together, now I take a fresh parchment paper and wrap it around my chopping board because I'm going to use that. I'm doing that just to make sure that I can clean up nicely afterwards. I won't have to spend too much time cleaning. You do not have to wrap that parchment paper again on that. The only reason why we needed it for the very first time was when it was a raw breadfruit and we didn't want it to stain everywhere. But right now you could do without, but I do it because I want to be able to clean up nicely afterwards without having to work too hard. So I'm going to empty my blended breadfruit into a bowl. I'm now going to use one whole egg. I'll take one whole egg and I'm going to crack it nicely into a new plate. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of my curry powder. That's to your taste. What I have just done there, have just added a pinch. But eventually I'm going to add about half a teaspoon. But to this egg, I just added a little bit. I'm going to beat that egg nicely to mix up both the curry and the white and the yellow. And I'm going to empty that into the breadfruit. I'm going to thoroughly mix that. Now I'm going to use a round wooden spoon to make it easy. I'll mix that until it's thoroughly mixed. So I have thoroughly mixed all my ingredients with the egg that I just put in there very nicely. Now I am going to add 3 tablespoons of melted butter. I used butter, so I melted some of it. I'm going to add 3 spoons of it into that mix. And if as we go on, I see that it requires more, I will add. But for now, I'm adding 3 tablespoons of that melted butter. Stir that in nicely. And I have here 1/4 cup of sieved cornmeal. Like I said, you could also use all-purpose flour. I'm not going to add the entire 1/4 cup yet. I'll just add a little bit and I'll check how hard it is. I want it a little bit hardened, and you'll understand why that is once we proceed to the next stage. Otherwise it's really soft, so I'm going to harden that out a little bit by adding flour to it. Okay, I still need more, so I'm going to add. I will give us the recipe, the quantities of each of these ingredients later on. So again, I'm going to keep mixing until everything is nicely mixed in together. So now that I have mixed that in nicely, I'm also going to spread a little bit of flour on my board here, just so that it won't be sticky. And I'm going to pour that out in there, or on that board. That way I'm going to mix it in with my hand very nicely. And I'm going to also have a little bit of flour on my hand. I'm going to start mixing this in very nicely. It is still very soft, so I'm going to add another 1/4 cup of flour. You put in flour, mix it until it is nice enough for you to make balls out of it. I'm going to make balls out of this, and I'll show us as we proceed. So this may demand at least 1 cup of flour. So I add more flour to it until it becomes a little bit hardened. So I add the flour and I mix that in very nicely into that. Remember, I had added pepper to this, so be careful when you what you do with your hands after that, because it's going to be pepperish. So having mixed everything nicely together, I'm just going to cover this up and allow it to sit there for about 15 minutes. Then I'll come back and continue with the recipe. Okay guys, it's been 15 minutes since I mixed up all the ingredients and left it here. You could see I covered it up with plastic paper. I use seal wrap, and I cover that up for 15 minutes. So now I'm going to proceed with the next phase. I'm going to crack another egg here. This is whole egg. I'm also going to crack it up. You could use egg white or egg yolk here. So here I have that whole egg there. I'm going to actually take out the yolk. I do not need the yolk really, though I can use it, but I'm going to take that out. Nicely mix that up. And I'm going to grease a plate here with my butter, melted butter that I had here. That way it's not sticky. That's the purpose of greasing it. I'm also going to use that egg white and rub it in there. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to make balls out of this. Roll it nicely in the egg white. Put it in there. Make balls. Roll it in my egg white. You could actually season that egg white if you want. You can add a little bit of salt and black pepper to it. So I'm going to get the whole thing rolled up, and I'll do the same until it is completely done. Then I'll show us the next one. So guys, now I have a deep pot on stove there, which is dry. And I'm going to just pour in 1 cup of peanut oil. You can use any kind of oil that you so desire. Here I am using 1 cup of peanut oil. You could either lightly fry this or deep fry it. It's up to you. But you're going to see my version. I'm going to allow that oil to warm up. So once that oil warms up, I'm going to also still season it up with just a little bit of salt, not too much of it, because I already have salt in the recipe, but I know I put just little, so I'm adding just a little bit more. I'm also adding a little bit more black pepper to flavor the oil. And now I'm going to throw in my molded breadfruit out in the pot there. You could also toss this into the oven and bake it if you do not want to fry. Either way, it is delicious. So guys, this is what the finished product looks like here. It is absolutely delicious. If you like this recipe, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel, Food Braggers Network, and be one of the first to be notified once I have uploaded new videos. Subscription is free. Just hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Okay guys, here is the finished breadfruit puffs. Absolutely delicious.